something fun like, oh yeah, I'm having a fun time. Oh my gosh, probably the best time I've ever had my time.
Yeah, I don't like Lumpy Space Princess. And I'm pretty sure I'm part of the majority here. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm sure there are plenty of people who really do like Lumpy Space Princess, and I can understand why. She is pretty much just a primarily comic relief character. She is a weird cloud alien thingy with the voice of Paladin Ward, yet acts exactly like a needy Valley Girl stereotype and gets into situations they really shouldn't be in. Honestly, she's really not too far off from, say, Pearl from SpongeBob, but they're so obnoxious, abrasive, and bratty they can make even the comedic parts that do work about her not worth the amount of annoyance she brings whenever she appears. Even the voice, which yeah, a lot of people do find funny, many people can easily just find it annoying. But if they were just a side comic relief, that would be one thing. We also get quite a few starring episodes and so many appearances throughout the show where you don't even expect them to come in like in the middle of a very important story arc. So you can't really avoid them. If you remember the BMO episode, I said I can't get into a character who feels like they aren't aware and don't care about the situation they're in. And it wasn't that I gave BMO crap for that, LSP has that in spades. When the character gets so disassociated from the actual story, it's hard for the audience to care about it as well. So many episodes of them involved in a plot they don't care about or completely overblown, or it gets even on the nerves of the other characters, pleading with them to actually understand their predicament. Now, all of this would be bad enough, but I think LSP is hurt by another thing. She is the one character who legitimately got no deeper interesting character development through the show. Like, think about it. Lumpy Space Princess is the only main character who didn't get any development. Like, even Lady Rainicorn, as I said, got some important development in the show, at least a little of her backstory, even if a lot is still underdeveloped or barely acknowledged. LSP gets basically nothing, except for maybe one arc resolution that's never useful again. So she sticks out amongst pretty much every character in this regard, even among the other primarily comic relief characters like the Ice King and BMO, which both did get really compelling stories around that make you care about them. So she's an abrasive and annoying character who's in so many episodes, yet you can't care about them or their stories or know they have any actual development during the course of the show. So it's easy to say that she's the worst character on the show. But is she? Well, obvious answer, no, that's how Blonde's a PB.
I'm a bad person.
But in all seriousness, I do really want to see if there's more depth to her. For as bratty, annoying, obnoxious, abrasive, unpleasant, irritating, aggravating, and just all around unlikable LSP is, are we wrong? Does she have redeeming qualities we all missed? Did she have development? Was she ever compelling? Did she become a better person even slightly? Does she even inch a bit on the likability scale? Or is she just one obnoxious joke that went way too far and the shows refuse to give it up? Let's take a look. Let's get into her main appearances and try to see if we can wring out even the slightest bits of redeeming qualities. This is going to be Lumpy painful. LSP's first appearance surprisingly comes from the second episode to ever air, Trouble in Lumpy Space. And this episode probably already made plenty of people hate or at least dislike LSP from the very beginning. So in typical Season 1 fashion, we start up with randomly a thing called the Mallow Tea Ceremony, which is some type of tea party bouncing on giant inexplicable marshmallows outside the Candy Kingdom. So is this like a Candy Kingdom thing, or does everyone new do this? I mean, Hot Dog Princess is there too, inexplicably, so maybe it is. Finn and Jake have a real hard time with it, but LSP immediately goes standoffish and says it's super easy, as Finn points out she's not even doing it, she's just floating above the whole thing. She tries to prove them wrong and deactivates her star thingy, which seems to depower her. Okay, this is weird. So this implies that Lumpy Space People's levitation comes from some charm when only LSP and her family have it as their royal symbol, and later equates it to a charm like Crown Jewel. So this is really damn weird. They probably didn't think too hard of this need to visually show LSP enabling gravity. And just like you would expect, she immediately fails and then accidentally bites Jake. And LSP says that Lumpy Space people work like werewolves and a bite will turn anything into one unless they get the antidote by sunset. Which, again, is insanely, we're like, what the hell is this? Lumpy Space people are probably the strangest race in the entire show, and literally being introduced to having assimilatory bites is so weird, especially this aspect is literally never seen or mentioned again. Actually, wait, could this be justified since so much later we see that lumps can override every other element in the universe? Holy crap, I never thought about that before. But luckily LSP does try and help to get the antidote, and though it seems that PB was gonna help them out, but she really gotta take a piss, so she's gone for the rest of the episode. And for once it would have been better to have her around, she's probably one of the few people who can actually get through LSP's thick lumpy skull. But luckily the portal is really close by, it's just a frog and a mushroom. Again, season 1, don't question it.
Whatever, it's 2009!
Wait, was this actually produced in 2009? And it takes in the Lumpy Space, which I gotta say made one of the prettiest and visually interesting locations in Adventure Time. Like really, these are some nice colors and backgrounds. If only the show didn't include random fart noises throughout.
Lumpy Space.
Though I don't think they ever explain what Lumpy Space actually is. Is it another dimension maybe? Maybe a pocket dimension? Is it an actual space of a cosmic nebula nearby Earth or far from it? Apparently, Pendleton warns that the Lumpy Space people are made of irradiated stardust, implying that this might be a post-Mushroom War creation. It's so weird and can only come from season 1. Also, a later episode said that LSP had a quinceañera, which, does Lumpy Space have some roots in Latin American culture? What? In fact, how come LSP even got to Ooh? Why is she there and the only one we see visiting? I'm so confused by all of this. We find the antidote is in Makeout Point, but the Lumpy Abyss prevents them from getting there, as LSP says they need a cart to fly over it. Which, okay, how did any life evolve here when they need a cart to not die? But unfortunately we see LSP's parents apparently mad that they brought smooth skins or whatever to Lumpy Space. So I guess the Lumpers are just xenophobic or something. But they forbid her from taking the family car as Finn begs them to call their friend Melissa as another car they can use. But LSP forgets about getting the antidote and insists over the weekly prom-coming dance tonight to the point where Finn has to literally take the phone and pretend to be here so they can save Jake before it's too late. And yeah, this is gonna get worse. Melissa, who looks like a Jigglypuff, doesn't take them to Makeout Point but to Brad's house, where it's also shown that she and practically every other Lumpy Space Princess is bratty and obnoxious. Which technically, like Lemongrab, you can argue that they're not a terrible person solely by themselves but are just a product of how they are created. But I still feel like LSP is in a league of her own. Case in point when she makes this life and death scenario all about her on the drive there. Do kinda love this part.
Do turn.
It's not gonna come to that. But if it does, I'll bury you beneath the—
Whoa, whoa, whoa. But I want you to get used to Lumpy Jake. What did you think I was saying?
What they find the antidote is an orb you sit on that will temporarily turn full lemon people into normal smooth ones. The guys with the orb are pretty chill and are more than willing to help Jake, until LSP, for no reason at all, comes over and insults them, pissing them off so they leave and dooms Jake. I literally can't believe it, oh my god, it's so infuriating. Finn justifiably goes off on her for this which she says,
What? I was helping you.
literally, how in God's name was any of that supposed to help? Like, literally, how? I want to know what you think that would accomplish. But then again, LSP makes this all about her as after rightfully being called out, she then throws a fit at them that they don't support them, and then takes the now nearly level-5 Jake to prom coming and leaves Finn to die at Makeout Point. So yeah, LSP at this point is literally the worst character in the show, and has done practically nothing but make everything worse. And Finn screams another torment that he failed to save Jake. But this weirdly impresses the other guys who give them the antidote. But they were also ditched here and can't make it past the abyss. But Finn thinks to lumify himself so he can float enough to safety, leading to this out of context moment.
Now bite me! Are you crazy?
And he makes it, but doesn't immediately use the orb on himself. Like, okay, I know he's focused on curing Jake and there's not much time left, but that would take less than a second. He finds Jake, but Jake has fully embraced the obnoxious hell attitude of the Lumpies before Finn also turns fully lumpy. And there goes any bit of redeemable life left in this dimension. But the two fight over the orb, accidentally curing themselves. Also, they never say or explain what they did with it after. They put it back on Makeout Point and maybe say those other guys. But then Finn apologizes to LSP for yelling at her and like, no to this, no to all of this. Finn did nothing wrong. LSP caused all of this, actively made things harder for themselves, seemed to ignore the problem most of the time, made this all about her, needlessly insult the people for the cure under the guise of helping, and doomed the person she turned, do a complete fit when rightfully called out, and left them to die and doomed it to be a Lumpy Space Person. She was absolutely horrible in this episode. She didn't deserve an apology and she deserved every ounce of that call out. And the show treating it like it was Finn in the wrong and he shows enabled them actively pisses me off, like no to all of this. But hey, you can make up to the person who ditched to above a spatial abyss with a dance. Yeah, I don't think this is a good episode, and frankly understand why this episode alone made people hate LSP. I don't think the plot itself is that good. It's a simple, get the antidote for a time limit, but it doesn't help that so much of the plot struggles only happen because of people purposely acting obnoxious. And nearly all of this is LSP. No, we can't get the ore immediately, we got to get an obnoxious teenager to drive us there and get their boyfriend. But it's really LSP who's struggling, as Finn's dying of anxiety that his brother and best friend is being stuck as these morons forever. Then LSP ruins everything for absolutely no reason by being a and can't even stand being rightfully called out on it. And this disses Finn to make him risk his life to save Jake after what she did. And then the episode pretends LSP was in the right somehow and Finn was in the wrong for this. It's a mediocre story where the conflicts come from obnoxious people doing stupid things and not caring about the situation, and needless to say, that's gonna make a bad episode. And LSP was practically irredeemable. Yeah, sure, she did help in the first place, but it was literally all her fault. It technically all started because she was being an obnoxious brat, but just made things worse and worse as he's called out, and there was a fit and the show enabled her actions anyway, which is a horrible moral as well. Like, I don't care what the hell you say, show, I'm not feeling bad for the idiot who made this entire situation worse and makes it about them. Like, it's just so bad and it's hard not to find LSP intolerable after this. And I don't know if this is a hot take, but I think this may be one of the worst episodes of the show. I think people will immediately hate LSP after this. But I want to move on. I don't want to talk too much about Prisoners of Love since I've talked about it extensively here. But LSP is one of Ice King's potential marriage victim, which, if you really think about it, is insanely messed up. Like, I see people say he's based or something because he refused to go after P when she became 13 in the season 2 finale. But don't forget, he literally kidnapped a teenager and was considering forcing them to marriage. Like, what the actual hell, show? Actually, considering she has her quinceañera in season 2, that means she's 14. So I guess going after 14-year-olds is fine, but 13 is crossing the line. Though Ice King did say she was one of his least favorite princesses, so at least there's that, and like loyalty to the king, saying that she's too loud and lumpy and he prefers smooth princesses. LSP though is actually into him there and is desperate to be what he wants as she tries to get Vince to punch the lumps out of her, which does seem apt after the last episode.
I can't punch a princess!
Oh, Finn, just punch her.
Lee can't do it and she does it herself. And Ice King voices me wondering, wait, let's see where this goes. What does she look like smooth? Honestly, an improvement. Also, need to mention that in season 2, LSP ran from home and is a hobo, starting in the episode to cut a woman's hair. You know, the episode where Finn needs to save Jake from being sucked up a witch's anus. Yeah, it's weird when you think of it like that, but I didn't write it.
You're gonna have to spend the rest of your life in this witch's butt.
No! Finn isn't even sure LSP has hair, but apparently she does. Okay, that already at start this explanation is making less and less sense. But LSP interprets it as Finn liking them is completely unwanted advancement on Finn, which I sure hope won't happen again in future episodes, as Finn runs as fast as he can.
In touch with your feelings, babe!
I guess this episode does show that LSP does legitimately like Finn, pretty much like every other princess in New does too. We also see it again in the episode Heat Signature, where they become a part of Marceline's prey to trick Finn and Jay that they're vampires. LSP thinks they're doing awesome, all roughing it, especially to find a can of beans to eat. And then Finn and Jake start messing with them, which honestly is kind of a jerk move, like they're clearly struggling on here, but I do hate LSP, so go for it. But then Finn commits an atrocity by accidentally spilling LSP's precious beans. And much as I hate LSP and don't find her funny, this did kill me as a kid.
My beans!
Beans just is a funny word. LSP is gonna kill them for this, like, okay, I mean, I know you like your beans, but wow.
I'm gonna kill you.
Wow. We're just gonna go right there?
But Marceline comes to save them from LSP's wrath. But finally we're going to season 3 for our next LSP episode, The Monster. And it starts out with Finn and Jake just doing their thing.
Why? Why?
Pizza!
But they get a messenger from the Lumpy Space Kingdom from the King and Queen who got new redesigns, crying that her daughter went missing for days. I'm surprised that Finn and Jake don't immediately tell them that LSP is just living on the woods and they know where they are, but no, don't call them the worried parents. What they say they're on is they are getting a bag of LSP's favorite sandwiches. Kinda surprised that the King and Queen are okay with them, considering they seem very angry that smooth skins were in Lumpy Space, but whatever. But Finn and Jake find some weird villagers asking for help that a monster is terrorizing their village and stealing their crops. And going to the windmill where the monster is, of course, it's LSP. LSP gladly takes the sandwiches and explains everything. That they are with their mom and dad in their house who ask if they can move back in with them. implying that she either has an apartment in Lumpy Space or maybe in the Candy Kingdom, as we'll see in another episode. Also, her parents were a whole lot nicer than they were in the first episode, but they seemed very nasty and angry, like what happened? But LSP again throws a fit over it, as her parents saying that they're worried about her, as LSP is going to prove them wrong and live alone by running away. So it's unknown if this happened before or after LSP became a hobo, since he seemed to do a decent job roughing it, but shows here he has absolutely no idea what to do, as she's left for dead but is luckily taken by a pack of wolves. The episode then just derails completely as he lives her life in the pack, making up teen identities and drama with the wolves I literally could not care less about, until eventually they rightfully get sick of her and then try to eat her alive, a decision I unanimously agree with and should have happened a lot earlier. But she escapes, but is all messed up from it, and she tries to get help from the villagers, but they think she's a monster as she helps herself through the crops they make to live off of. And so now she pretends to be a monster to get food for herself and has terrified and starved the local since. Finn immediately points out that's insanely wrong, and LSP tells him not to say that, so it makes her feel bad. Finn does give her advice to apologize and make amends to the farmers, which she actually does and admits she faked the whole thing, but then says this.
I'm sorry that you're starving because I ate all of your crops, even though you're all still really fat. And I probably helped you lose some weight.
Oh my god, girl, time and place. Even Finn calls her on this, but this time at least she didn't throw another fit about it. But it does piss off the farmers try and kill her, which again, I agree, best course of action.
We have to!
Well, you don't have to.
Yeah, you can just let her go.
No, they have to do this. Don't ruin this for me. Please, I don't want to watch more LSP episodes.
Why don't you just get your parents to buy more crops?
You know, she's kind of right though. You guys have like no outside trade to other villages or markets, and hell, there's a grocery kingdom out there. You guys is entirely self-sustained. But of course, after hearing they're all just parents trying to feed their children, LSP realizes he was being unreasonable to her parents who loved her very much. In the first act of genuine kindness in the show, she gives them the bag of her sandwiches so they can eat. And holy crap, is this character development? This is impossible! And LSP returns home with the king and queen happy to have them back and thanks them, but LSP brings up the obvious.
Yeah, we didn't really do that much.
Now you say this, but no way in hell LSP would have taken responsibility for her own actions without you guys. Do you know how important you were? Yeah, this episode sure is filler. Yeah, not a lot happened here. They have to find LSP, they find her, LSP gets a massive tangent about living with wolves that's nothing but stupid teenager jokes. The plot goes back to itself. LSP has to stop being a terrible person for a second to easily save the day in the end. This is pretty much a nothing episode. The ending doesn't even stick, she doesn't stay in home, she's still a hobo in later episodes. Where even the princess is pointing out she's not even a princess anymore, so all this was pointless. Where the hobo joke's just too tempting to give up. I mean, okay, the bean joke was hilarious, so maybe it was, but I needed character development. Actually, okay, in this episode's favor, this did actually have the slightest amount of character development for LSP. She was told what she was doing was wrong, and she should apologize and then throw a fit over it that she shouldn't have to because she did nothing wrong, and did realize she went too far and hurt both her parents and the farmers. And by herself, generously gave them the rest of her sandwiches to atone and to help them. Sure, she gloats after, but hey, she did it. I can't believe I'm treating basic apologies and goodwill as amazing character growth. After the last episode's other failure in that regard, this is downright glorious. So at least this episode ends with LSP becoming a slightly better person, I guess. Though she also has a part in the Halloween specials, aka the ones that legitimately traumatize a generation. Starting with From Bad to Worse. So we start right on running as PB and her infinite wisdom create another zombie apocalypse by just leaving out zombie flesh formula and ignoring Cinnamon Bun when he says he's hungry. 1. Why is this PB's problem? Literally go to a restaurant or something. And 2. Come on PB, it doesn't take a genius to guess what happened next. And she gets taken by the zombies and infected right before she can make the antidote formula, which is the one time in which PB wouldn't be eaten alive by zombies. Okay, this is season 3 before she started to be a god-awful character who does nothing but make situations worse, and this show completely ignores her, treating her like an awesome person. I'm being unfair. You know, this is sounding familiar. But okay, I will give LSP credit, she was fully taking charge during the zombie apocalypse. So it's up to the group to make the formula themselves, but each to make the zombies better in some way. And LSP just gives them honestly disgusting massive red lips, but she just needs to have that to be hotter, as she ignores everything about the situation allowed with the formula, and then gets devoured by zombies. Well, if it isn't the consequences of my own actions. Honestly, LSP was a liability anyway, so we didn't lose anyone important. Also, I really can't get over how brutal this episode ending was, like it got pretty messed up here. But now to The Creeps, the one Adventure Time episode that really traumatized me as a kid to the point where I refused to watch it until years later. But please tell me I'm not alone here. Never covered it in depth, so I'm gonna do it now. It's a dark, stormy night where Finn and Jake are going to a masquerade party they were mysteriously invited to in a mansion atop a cliff. We also see Bubblegum, Cinnamon Bun, BMO, and LSP were invited too. Hey wait, how did BMO get there before them? Wouldn't he have been invited with them? LSP also says that they broke up with Brad, which surprises everyone. Like, wasn't that made obvious in the first episode? They clearly broke up. Why is the new thing that they get back together off screen? They're also supposed to use mystery names as they find the envelope that their host is a ghost, which surprises them despite ghosts being already established in the universe. Like, what's the deal? But it also says it will possess one of them and kill the others when they read it, and no one can leave. So yeah, if you can't tell, we got already a sort of Clue parody here with the premise. I never actually played Clue. I wish someone would play with me. I'm very lonely. And the ghost proves its point by immediately killing Cinnamon Bun when he tries to escape. Poor guy, he didn't even get his chance to actually be a cool character yet. Jake is skeptical though, since he pulled the same trick on Finn's birthday, but everyone's immediately suspicious. Jake gets the idea to get some candles in case the power goes out to catch the murderer as they split up, which is maybe the worst possible decision here. Though BMO has this really great monologue that kinda comes out of nowhere, and they find the glow sticks, but it doesn't matter as BMO is taken by the ghost. You see? This is why you don't split up in horror movies. Also, this shows the ghost is perfectly able to kill its victims without needing to possess anyone, so it kinda doesn't matter. Jake calls everyone in a panic, leading to my favorite part of the episode that I totally didn't edit.
Don't you mean you got him?
Then we should stay in a group. He can't take us all on if we're in a group.
That's what I'm saying! They think LSP is dying, but she's just taking a crap. It makes me really wonder about Lumpy Space anatomy.
Where's the food? What kind of castle is this? It's like a poor people's castle with no lumpy waffles for my dump truck.
God, can she please die next? I thought the obnoxious idiot is the first to die in horror movies. They interrogate each other, where Jake asks why LSP broke up with Brad. I figured it's because he spent more than a second with her.
Kissed me on the mouth. And I was like, wah, wah, wah. It was like, obviously you're not ready for me, but what does that even mean, you guys?
Okay, you're one to talk considering the into cut a woman's hair.
Well, if you want these lumps, you gotta put a ring on it. Where's my ring?
And they continue to be annoying.
Answer me this, princess.
What do you want from me, Brad? You said I was the hottest one. Isn't that enough? Why'd you have to?
But the ghost comes in and brutally melts Princess Bubblegum to my immense joy. Hey, after the shit she pulled in the cooler, I consider it karmic justice. Finn admits he was praying Jake back all along, but this was supposed to happen, and Beam and Cinnamon Bun's death were fake. Only to find their brutally maimed and mutilated corpses in the closet. You know, I gotta say, as a kid, seeing these characters brutally killed was scarring to say the least. LSP panics and calls their parents for help as the ghost goes after them and looks to trap their soul in a painting or something as if it was witches. So, Bimo and Cinnamon have died, but so did Bubblegum and LSP. So, all in all, I'd say this was worth it. Can we end the episode now? But the duo run from the ghost as Jake is soon taken thanks to his tacky gloves as Finn's all alone as we get to the part that scared the ever-loving piss out of me.
Oh god! What the fuck? What the fuck, okay?
Like seriously, what the f*** show? The creepy music and atmosphere, how that thing just literally appears without any explanation, the creepy ass smile and eyes, you know how gross it looks, and the fact that it was done without any sense of parody or silliness. It's a creepy ass ghost woman abomination in your face. No wonder this was traumatizing to me. And Finn gets the hell out of there and he doesn't even bother fighting back. He has to literally break down the wall and force his way to escape, see more weird crap until finally getting cornered by the original ghost. But surprise, it was actually a counter prank by Jake who arranged all of this, and the ghost they saw was actually this lady Rainicorn showing off her new power to phase people through her and explain some of the fake deaths, like swapping PB with a wax dummy, which you can actually see a bit earlier. But Finn asked about the weird ghost girl and stuff, but Jake says he didn't do anything like that, which proves that, no, Finn was attacked by a legitimate hostile ghost and barely got away. Yeah, enjoy sleeping tonight, kids. Yeah, I think this is the Fair Time's scariest episode, and there's a lot of competition. The atmosphere is really intense, and they really go super damn far in gory and mutilating your favorite characters. And that ending part with the ghost creature randomly showing out of nowhere was absolutely terrifying to me and made me never want to see the episode again. And thank God they at least finally acknowledged it again in a much later episode and revealed it was actually one of Finn's past lives trying to contact them in a very sad story. But I sure as hell know at the time. But for the video, LSP doesn't really do too much except the usual be obnoxious routine and seemingly forgetting the situation they're in. Though I guess if they're in on the prank, it makes sense. I guess also the Brad stuff, which I already established didn't make sense on how they recently broke up, but LSP not understanding moving on with the relationship when she's shown to be insanely clingy and forceful even to Finn later. But at the end, she's ready to take on the next step as if this literally changed anything. I don't know and I don't get it. Moving on. She also has her own segment in the first 5-star Gradables where she makes a dumb song and then assaults people with basketballs. Who cares? Moving on.
I know you wanna stump up on these
Nuts.
Moving to season 4, LSP's next main role is Gotcha, where we see LSP is still living life as a hobo. So again, nice to know that all her character development of realizing the love of her parents and she can't live in the woods got completely ignored because the show wants to make fun of the homeless.
Get away from my cat. I'll cut you.
Luckily, Turtle Princess comes along with fruit snacks, and it's when they actually have a friendship, which is actually interesting since you would consider LSP would think they were a nerd or something. Turtle Princess is jealous of LSP's lies about getting boys' attention, and tells them they should write a book on it, and deluded with self-confidence, she's gonna sew it off with Finn. But hey, at least she's kind of helping out Turtle Princess here, so at least it's something. LSP gaslights them that she's filling in their ad for an adventure secretary that they never made, but Finn pities them so much that they agree to add her in. She makes a desk and demands food and thinks she can try using her body to get better ones, convinced she's overpowered by the lumps. Yeah, this episode is gonna be painful. The next day the two are gonna go on an adventure in the mountain, and LSP for some reason comes along, still whining along the way. They have to go through the Lock of Phantoms, where PB says the rocks will show the safe path, making me wonder her involvement in this. But LSP finds it too boring and tries to show off her body, but Finn doesn't care right now. LSP winds up with a dungeon and Finn blatantly points out that they can meet back in the treehouse, but she ignores that as Finn's trying to be careful, but LSP is too focused on getting his attention and goes in the portal.
Listen, LSP, we gotta be careful.
Ooh, my dress.
No, LSP.
Okay, you know, I gave BMO crap and BMO loss for caring more about adopting a random baby than getting back home and seeing his family, but you are far, far worse. And it seals her in a hall of mirrors, and I really wish this was some elaborate scheme to get rid of her, and I pray this leave her and never come back. She's surrounded and attacked by shadow demons, and I am seriously on their side, but unfortunately Finn and Jake break in and defeat them, sadly enough. They say PB tasked them to destroy the cursed mirrors, which, okay, then that makes sense. And Finn compliments her that she's beautiful on the inside. I know you're trying to do it, but there's nothing redeemable in there, just a shallow, obnoxious teenager. LSP goes to write the book, which I'm legitimately surprised she can write, all things considered, but instead just can't believe that Finn is instead so freaking cool and awesome, it's nowhere he can rizz up all the princesses anew, but still can't have a stable relationship for the life of him. She makes a manuscript, but Turtle Princess points out it isn't like what she says to prove how her looks can woo any guy, but still loves it. LSP comes back and admits she pretended to be their secretary to try and woo him for a book, and then we get...
LSP, you garbage!
Yeah, this episode. Adventure Time, please stop giving her starring roles. Nothing really happens. Again, I cannot get into her episodes at all. There's no conflict, no development, nothing interesting happens in them. It's just LSP does obnoxious things until the episode ends. It's torture. I know people like her and find her funny, but if you don't, that's literally all she has going for her. He's incredibly pushy and objectifying this episode, and it's pretty awkward to actually watch. And again, I cannot stand it when a character is not only just kind of shown to a plot you have to deal with, but they never actually care about the situation they're in. There is a reason why I want them to just die in one of these episodes. At least the episode did end with her respecting Finn and didn't just take all the credit for raising him up and lying, but it's still a waste of time. Moving on. Then we go to Season 5's Candy Street, which thankfully barely has LSP in it. So Finn and Jake are just messing around with cats for some reason, until LSP barges in screaming that someone stole something from her and is causing a scene. Oh, thank God they can euthanize her. But this makes LSP groggy until she gets knocked out, only saying something about a guy named Pete Sass something. Now, instead of just waiting for her to wake up, since they should easily know by now that LSP is insanely dramatic and exaggerates, Finn and Jake take up the roles as cops to find out what's going on, going to her apartment. Which does show that she is living in one, I guess, which she should have done a long time ago. Like, isn't she friends with PB? Why couldn't she find them a home in their kingdom? Was living in the woods a good call? But it's all ruined, and they apparently find blood and leave Bimo to analyze the evidence. Eventually, they think that the criminal was a guy named Pete Sassafras, and they try to get him. Also, Jay can't stop turning to cop stuff for whatever reason and gives us this moment.
We lost him.
Not yet, we didn't. Ow. Woo, 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 woo.
Pete has absolutely no idea what's going on, but without any evidence whatsoever, Finn and Jake are able to throw him in jail. Like, wow, no trial or due processing. Does the Candy Kingdom not even have a judicial system? Pete says he didn't even do anything, as Finn and Jake are determined to lock him up for a crime they didn't even know about, even mock him when he asks for a lawyer. Yeah, they're kind of absolute SOBs here. Is this allowed in Candy Kingdom law? But BMO tells him it wasn't blood at all, it was tomato sauce. Which makes Finn rethink the whole thing, and that LSP didn't say Pete Sass, she said Pizza Sassies, which is revealed for the first time as a Candy Kingdom pizza joint, and they go back to the apartment finding LSP forcibly grabbing the delivery boy, not wanting to let them go, as of course she said he stole her heart. Even Finn and Jake realize this is messed up and try to get the poor guy out of there. You guys really should have seen this coming considering this is LSP. Jake, your son is a million times better a detective than you. Also, they never freed Pete Sassafras after this, so he's still illegally incarcerated for this BS. No wonder he joined Gumball in destroying the damn place. Don't know what he would even offer, but hey, he has a reason. Yeah, another filler episode, but at least it was a little bit more enjoyable than usual LSP romp, largely because LSP is barely in it. I mean, you can't actually get invested in this story, but Finn and Jake's confidence is at least a little amusing, and we do get to see more down bad LSP, but it's completely scalable. Next is Apple Wedding, but I talked about it plentifully before. LSP doesn't play a huge part of it, but it's Finn's job exclusively to keep her away from the wedding because even PB knows she'll barge in uninvited her to make the whole thing about her. And she does exactly that, as even Finn can barely stop her. But it's actually PB who supplies immense cranial trauma, making me immensely happy, as she ruins the wedding herself anyway and then incarcerates everyone there out of spite. Our beloved princess, everybody! Well, if there's anyone who deserves to be locked up, it's gonna be LSP, who thankfully is still in a concussion-based coma for the rest of the episode. PB also lets all the prisoners go at the end, which hopefully means Pete from the last episode got free too from his unjust incarceration, even if it took a long time. But in the episode Bad Timing, we get, could it be, an actually compelling LSP story? It can't be possible! So the entire episode has a weird filter around it, which makes it insanely hard to keep focus since everything out of focus is filled with weird trippy visuals and little dudes running around I don't like. Except for this cat. I like this cat. But PB is making a presentation with Finn and Jake and weirdly Embryo Princess, her uncle, as well as a random mud scamp named Mooby Woo. Not that I'm complaining, I love these guys.
Crazy scary. I mean, what if you got 8? Think about it.
Don't know what he's doing here, but it's proven on anything. PB says she invented time travel, but it kind of isn't. Effectively, she has this weird permeable or maybe somewhat thanks to Embryo Princess that like records every molecule and actions of the thing inside of it, and she can activate it and force the molecules of whatever it scanned back into it to replay the exact moment of the time it recorded. I hope I explained it well as she demonstrates with those weird little guys she mutilated back in the Lich. Jake also points out it's really not time travel, but at least Wooby was appreciative.
Well, I enjoyed your presentation very much, Princess. Thank you for inviting me.
Man, I love this guy. He should be a main character instead of LSP, much more tolerable.
Guy pulled his fiance out of time from 1,000 years ago using magic.
Hey, Time, where's my fiance, am I right?
Speaking of which, LSP then barges in and makes a huge scene and demands you to go back at time when Brad loved her. Okay, did they break up again? What the hell is this, Schrodinger's relationship? And then when PB doesn't let them since they have no idea how it works and it can't work how they asked, she literally attacks them and starts pulling out their hair.
I will avoid declaring war on the entirety of Lumpy Space, ruled by your parents, if you apologize to me immediately.
Oh, okay then. So you'll gladly go to war against all Lumpy Space because of this, but if the Fire Kingdom might, then you sabotage their entire infrastructure and kill innocents and sabotage their weapons and society because you claim to be too unprotected to go to war. Nice to know you really were making all that shit up. No, I will never let the cooler go. That episode makes all these LSP episodes look Oscar-worthy. LSP does a half-assed teenage apology and then goes to drink her sorrows away at the bar. Is she even old enough to drink? But at least Tritos is killing on stage, like you go girl. Now, this looks to be another terrible LSP romp, so you might wonder why I said it was compelling before. Well, that comes with Johnny, who is another Lumpy Space person at the bar sitting next to them. They recognize them from high school where LSP used to bully them for being ugly, but she now thinks they're pretty cute and actually encourages them, being a little flirty and cheering her up. And that's what they're doing here. Johnny is an entrepreneur in a business selling Lumpy space gas, and he's gonna meet with Bubblegum tomorrow to make a contract deal that can make or break him. Even LSP respects it, but he's nervous about it as LSP wants to help him get more confidence in himself, helping him to practice. And it's like, wow, LSP isn't being obnoxious, They're being helpful, and it's actually kind of cute. Is this characterization? Is making a character compelling? Can Adventure Time do this? I didn't know Adventure Time can make characters compelling. But like, seriously, why did it take literally the last episode until the season 5 finale for them to finally evolve LSP past the same old obnoxious 1A teenager lives in the wood joke and actually make her somewhat likable? Like, she has that attitude here, but it's much more subdued and more of a strong, flirty type to this bratty. This is what was missing. They even go to their apartment that LSP compliments and, wait, didn't you used to have one? Oh wait, we're never moving past Hobo LSP. That just didn't exist. Ignore the entire point of the monster again. They even goof around for a bit. It's pretty cute. Johnny even invites them to stay the night and they don't want him walking home. Probably in a way she doesn't have one, as he thanks her for everything. The next morning, Johnny's sad that they seem to leave, but nah, she's waiting for them, as she wishes them good luck on their meeting and gives them good vibes. And even the banana guards are surprised that he's so confident since he's got his GF sending good vibes. And Johnny comes back saying they made the sale and thanks him for the confidence. And he says the princess wants him to go to a royal dinner tonight to go over the contract stipulations. But unfortunately, like original programming on streaming services, good things are not meant to last. As LSP interprets this business dinner as Bubblegum stealing her boyfriend. So again, LSP continually does nothing but ruin her own life and the lives of those around her. Oh well, at least we can make the scene better.
Think again, Trench.
Who are you talking to?
You're too good for this show. LSP looks longingly at the two in their dinner, seeing the man she now loves, and makes a big speech about her feelings. And then she makes, holy f***, a Molotov cocktail! Like seriously, she's making weaponized explosives and throws it in the castle and then cuts the brakes of presumably an oil or paint truck and drove it through the castle door, causing a huge explosion that no doubt has many casualties. Like there's some baked bananas in there. PB thinks the castle's under siege and tells Johnny to hide and...
There's cyanide-laced gum under the table. Chew it if you hear raiders break down the door.
Okay, what the hell, girl? Why do you have this as your contingency plan? What is going on in your kingdom? You're demented! But LSP broke in with the time travel orb, and she's determined to use it to bring Johnny back to when he still loved her. Before Johnny could say anything, she shoves it in him and activates it and probably decapitates them. But they go to the tavern, and of course Johnny's not there, as PB has to tell her that she never recorded Johnny in the spirit before activating it, so he couldn't recreate it. And not even PB knows where he went. Which, you really should have checked what would happen to the matter if he didn't record first. You're a terrible scientist. But it turns out this weird dual dimension around the episode is where Johnny ended up, as he reformed and is able to see what's going on in Ooh, but can't interact or probably get out. LSP cries and pleads to reset their molecules to when she first tried to use the device yesterday so she wouldn't feel this torment, as PB obliges as she's returned to how she was before, angrily yelling at PB. As the episode ends with Bubblegum getting a drink and I'm about to join her. This episode is incredibly frustrating because they almost developed LSP. Like, they did the impossible. They made her likable and compelling with an actual cute relationship. She stopped being an obnoxious, bright teenager, nothing but yell a lot, and used her characterization to make her a flirty yet loving couple, and Johnny was cute too, finally getting some attention. It was actually compelling and almost felt like they were finally moving on from the same exact show kept doing for LSP. Like, no more stupid obnoxious teenager jokes, no more stupid homeless people jokes. It's like they actually wanted to finally develop the character even slightly. But no, because LSP has the brain of a peanut, she's going to be an idiot the second half, thinking the business date was a dare date despite Johnny saying it's just a business meeting, and it commits actual crimes I'm surprised PB is cool with, as he effectively kills Johnny and exiles him to another dimension. And she couldn't even learn since the episode Factory Reset her, so any development she had got reversed. I am so sick of this. I am so sick of the show hinting that they're finally going to move past the lowest common denominator bullshit and do something absolutely anything with her, and they just don't. Cause yeah, at practically season 6 at this point, Adventure Time never did anything compelling or evolve their characters at all. Seriously, it's like if Ice King never got any of his amazing characterization moments in episodes, and the show did nothing but constantly use him as a petty villain and made jokes on his loneliness, but not even funny jokes, the jokes that he's annoying. And then the show treats it like they might evolve him, they decide no. Like, Lynn McGrath also kind of fell into this being nothing more than an obnoxious jerk, but at least the show kind of did something with it and had some interesting episodes and premises around him. LSP can only dream to have something like that. This episode is seriously my breaking point because it was a glimmer of hope we can finally move on and do something actually good with this character, but it just didn't at the end because status quo is king here. You gave me hope, Adventure Time, and I hate you. But moving on, we get to season 6's Breezy. As I want to remind you at this point, Finn has recently had his long lost dad ditch him and tear off his arm, so yeah, he's down in the dumps about it. Dr. Princess advises him to go out and have fun, and Finn decides to fill the void in his soul by going out and kissing every princess he can. Man, the kid still got it. Also, there's a bee named Breezy who really wants to get down with Finn's flower arm, but she's not important, just trust me on this. But during the princess montage, Finn eventually goes to LSP. Though after a kiss, LSP demands for more, which again makes me pissed off at the creeps because apparently she wasn't ready to advance the relationship and didn't know what going to the next level was, but she repeatedly forces Finn to step up in a relationship whenever it's actually a thing, like are you afraid to move on or not?
Don't be scared, Finn. Lumpy's on lifeguard duty.
What is up with this show? This is even worse than spooning! I can't believe they got away with this, what the f***? Finn gets his arm back after less than 6 episodes, but who cares, I'm not recovering from that. Next is Princess Day, which I already covered in my Raggedy Princess video, please see it, I beg you. Which we see in one of my favorite additions to the world, where the princesses of Rue come together to decide their trade exports and relations to each other, really unifying each of these separate kingdoms in a fascinating way which got more elaborated on. But unfortunately, LSP exists to do nothing but torment me, as she ruins it by making a scene who would have guessed, saying that the whole thing is boring and lame. But Breakfast Princess, who's trying to lead this whole thing, tells her to shut the hell up and that they're doing important things, and shouldn't even be here since it doesn't have a kingdom anymore after running away. Which also, this is another time the monster became completely irrelevant, thanks for that. And she's nothing but a bride who shouldn't even have been invited and gets kicked out when LSP loudly admits she didn't get invited and crashed to eat the food. And you know what? The episode treats it like Breakfast Princess in the wrong for going Mean Girls, but she's not. Everything she said was right and she should have said it. LSP has done nothing but become an irresponsible, obnoxious annoyance to ruin her own life, and it's about damn time someone actually said it to her face. She is the one character who is fed up with this bitch like I am, and I'm all for this. She is the hero of the story, and I stand with her 100%, and it's so nice to finally see someone tear into LSP. But like before, I can't get what I want. So Marceline pairs up with LSP to get back at BP, which I will give credit they're actually doing something new. Adventure Time works a lot of magic by having its characters have new relations and attachments, so this can work, and I'm surprised it took them this long to do it. This is the first time LSP actually had an interesting relation, and it's probably the one that makes the most sense. Marceline also has a sense of teenage angst, relationship trouble, and a rebel without a cause attitude, but is instead an actually really good character with layers and complexity beyond their surface. Honestly, anything that LSP can supply that isn't forced obnoxious humor, Marceline can do better. But Marceline really hasn't anyone that can support the mischievous nature outside of a few one-offs, so this can work. Now, unfortunately it's not anything too special, but hey, it makes LSP antics much more palatable by default, so I'll take it. And speaking of, they take one of her cars, as I'll just reuse this joke from the Raggedy Princess video.
That's awesome.
Stop right there!
What was that?
Hey Marceline, how you in the sun? Okay fine, she didn't die, but they instead don't leave the scene of the crime, put her in the trunk, and drive her off into the desert, put on disguises, and force them to dig ditches. Something about this feels like a declaration of war. They also ditch her, which I don't think she knows her way back, so this might have been attempted murder. We literally never see her get back home, so for all intents and purposes, she could have died here. She doesn't deserve this, all she did was rightfully call out LSP and her BS. If that's a crime, then arrest me and throw me in candy jail. Ah, damn it.
Do you think, like, doing all that bad stuff makes us, like, bad people?
Okay, I will give LSP some credit here. She did some downright horrible things here, but at least she hesitates and thinks she might have done something wrong and it makes her a bad person. Meanwhile, Bubblegum decimates an entire kingdom's infrastructure, people, and culture out of nothing but paranoia, attacks the leader who trusted her, and admits she doesn't even think she's worth talking to and working diplomatically because she's beneath her, and loudly smiles, admitting she hits surveillance cameras everywhere, even inside of other people, and yet refuses to think that she did anything wrong and she's a bad person. The bar may be so astronomically low that it is shaking hands with death itself, but at least LSP rises above that, which is one of the little compliments I can give her. Though I question Marceline's reasoning.
I don't think there are bad people. But if you only do it once, it's just a mistake, and that's not bad.
Though I do feel bad about taking a BPCD and not running her over and leaving her to die in the desert. So this episode, as I said, I liked a lot of Princess Day aspects, but I really couldn't get into the main plots as I hate LSP as a character. And can't get into her struggle when Breakfast Princess is completely in the right for everything. At least the friendship with Marceline made it much better since he's a better character, and it's a relationship that makes sense of the world. But unfortunately the show really doesn't do much more with it when it might have had the potential to save LSP. At least they're bandmates after, that's something at least. And it's probably my favorite of the LSP based episodes, but that's not exactly a high bar. But next in season 6 is Be Sweet. We see LSP struggling, roughing in the woods for the millionth time, and pissing me off even more because, oh wait, you got over this in The Monster, why this show refused to acknowledge that episode exists? It's so nice when the little amount of development a character has gets grinded to nothing by the show itself. Though apparently LSP gets a job to babysit Sweet P for Tree Trunks and Mr. Pig. I think LSP is literally the worst person on earth to look over the reincarnation of death and destruction. but I'd still gladly be in a room with the Lits than her, since at least the Lits will torture me much quicker. LSP though ignores all the advice and rules Tree Trunks give them, just wanting to mooch off at Tree Trunks' stuff. Again, you have loving parents who want you home, you ass! I do love how Mr. Pig clearly doesn't trust them and doesn't get any lines this episode. But LSP also just wants to get Sweet P out of the way so they can relax and eat food, and completely ignores him when he wants to be tucked to bed and breaks out. She also calls Marceline to say how nice they have it, as she is the grossest shit I've seen in my life. Why are belly buttons so disgusting? Oh my god! Also, she had to deal with a raccoon trying to get them, no big D.
Belong in the woods with garbage animals.
God damn, it's LSP on LSD? Well, at least the raccoon helps get my feelings across.
You made it gross. Everything you touch turns gross.
Ah, catharsis feels good. As LSP denies it, saying she's not a bad person. She goes to Sweet P, seeing she completely failed as he went on a small rampage in the Candy Kingdom looking for someone to tuck him in.
You don't really think you deserved any of this, do you? You're a rat. Just a giant rat that wandered into somebody's nice house. Just accept that you're garbage.
Okay, I'm convinced this raccoon is literally me. But oh my god, is LSP realizing the faults of their characters and trying to make it better? Could the show finally be developing the character? It can't be! But they both get arrested and meet back up as the banana guards reveal to be complete jerks. But LSP finally does the steps to make him fall asleep. And she somehow gets them home asleep fine even though the house is wrecked. And LSP tries to goad them to hiring them as the full nanny for their relationship has grown so much. And fittingly just gets kicked out.
Maybe we can get a nectar to sit, I don't know.
That's a great idea, Tree Trunks. Please, we'd be a million times more responsible and needs more screen time. But the episode ends foreshadowing the combat arc, but who cares? Honestly, this episode would be another crappy LSP romp where they take advantage of Tree Trunks and abuse Sweet P, but I will give them credit, LSP actually learned something. At least it's applied the raccoon with her internal thoughts as she's forced to realize how horrible a person she is, now she's taking advantage of people. And unlike before, she actually agrees and tries her best to make things better. It's amazing, it's like actual character development is happening, it's so rare here! It was so nice to stay after so long, and I pray to God this isn't just going to be ignored and ruined again, so at least it's a slight step up. But we're at season 7 with Summer Showers, an episode that focuses on Jake's probably least developed kid, Viola. We see LSP is putting up a play and Viola wants to audition for it. LSP is obviously a diva trying to get her perfect vision of her play and refuses to accept Viola but gets her as an assistant. She just lied to Jake about getting a part in the play and says he's still very supportive of his kids.
Sometimes I wonder if maybe I haven't been the best dad. Maybe I blew it.
Well, LSP butts back in for more pain, endless pain. I haven't hated making a video as much as the Ben 10 romance one. They also complain about Viola not getting accurate enough raindrops and wants them to go outside and sketch rain for reference.
Is worthwhile?
Yes! How can I explain this as simply as...
Neither too big nor too...
Stop interrupting me when I'm trying to explain things childishly!
Does anyone find this entertaining? I am begging you.
I may be a princess, but when people meet me, they don't think princess. They think Lumpy Space Princess.
Gee, I wonder why.
Wait, that's right. You don't have a kingdom. You live in a box in the woods.
But apparently LSP wants to prove she's special with the play and making this really good, and I would almost say it's compelling reasoning if it was entirely self-serving. Viola points out she should talk to someone else about because he's clearly treating it like therapy, but LSP tells them to do their job. So the rehearsals go as Viola makes the perfect rain until opening night. But of course the cliche happens where Tree Trunks as the main lady can't commit. But hilariously enough, it's because Mr. Pig really doesn't like the idea of her kissing another guy on stage. Which, come on dude, you gotta know anything about your wife here. But of course Viola memorizes all the lines so LSP doesn't make her a lead, but instead uses herself. Pretty good subversion honestly, but I don't know why this wasn't her idea from the start. But Viola can't have her parents see she didn't actually get the part in the play, use her weird Rhinocorn powers to teleport LSP to the Ice King to her rage. I mean, I would have preferred her teleport into an active volcano instead, but this works I guess. And I gotta say, Viola's killing in the role, and I do like how Finn's bored out of his mind. LSP though freaking booked it all the way from Ice King's place to the Candy King. It's like a 3 kingdom long trip. Even she sees the pure star power on stage. But it was actually because of how good the rain looked. Yeah, this episode, there's really nothing here. It's a usual play episode, but it's not even unique. The play is boring. You never get into it. It's already beneath other similar episodes in different shows. Also brought down by the usual LSP obnoxiousness that makes every episode a chore to sit through. But it was neat to learn more of Viola at least, so it's really more worth it just to see her and what her whole deal is. Shame this was our only Spotlight episode, but we made it to the big one, the Elemental Saga, which as we all know is the one and only time LSP actually became plot relevant. As the Elemental assimilation took over Ooh, only Betty and Ice King were spared by escaping into the clouds, and Finn and Jake said they were on the human islands at the time. They need to get the jewels of power from the elemental princesses and hope to reverse it, as they go to the Slime Kingdom first and meet plenty of slimified peeps, eventually finding LSP as they roller skate to be able to get close to the Titanic Slime Princess. Also funny, even their slimified friends don't want them.
You're just terrible.
Honestly, not much happened in this episode until the end where Finn gets the crown but Jake gets assimilated to Slime Princess for good, essentially killing him. But we also see LSP actually never got assimilated to the slime element and she's still normal, which is eyebrow raising to say the least. So yeah, without Jake, it's just Finn and LSP for the rest of the arc.
Stop being so selfish, Finn. I'm the one hurting here.
I hate this already. Then the next episode, they go to the Fire Kingdom to get Flame Princess's jewel, and they deal with the Furious Warriors. Also, LSP can survive the Fire Kingdom without Flame Shield for some reason. Also, Cinnamon Bun is completely worthless in this arc, and I really wish he joined instead. But eventually, Gunther and even Finn eventually fall to the influence of the Fire Kingdom, getting assimilated into it. But at least they also want to end LSP, who again is impervious to the elemental effect.
Or like me. Why isn't everyone more like me?
Kill her.
Please, please! But LSP wishes they were nice at the Candy People, which inspires them all to go and burn down the Candy Kingdom to the ground, as LSP can only watch and able to stop the Flaming Warriors. So LSP is now the only one who can actually do anything. We're doomed. They actually have a heart-to-heart with Candy and Marceline that they don't think they can save the world, which is literally the one time in this show where they seem to have actual observational awareness to what's going on around her, isn't making this all about a relationship with Brad or some crap. Though Marceline gives us some of her marshmallow flesh, inspiring LSP to take action before Finn can harm PB, shoving her candy flesh into his burning face, making him smell the aroma and reminding him of his old life and love for her, which actually reverts the elemental assimilation and turns it to normal. I can't believe it! She did something! And with it, Finn can take PB's jewel and LSP shields him from being assimilated by PB's candy blast. Which, again, she's on a roll here, and he gets Flame Princess's jewel, but Betty betrays them and leaves them to the candy hordes. But LSP actually saves them again, as Finn points out how come LSP is completely immune to every single elemental assimilation, which causes LSP to remember a lesson by her parents explaining that lumps are actually a new subatomic element that binds magical sources of Ooh more powerful than all the other elements and orders reality. Yeah, that's a lot to take in and kinda comes out of nowhere, except... Wait, was this foreshadowed in Season 2? No, they couldn't have thought this far ahead. I refuse. Though LSP is very stubborn and hard to work with, so it's nice to see that she still doesn't care about the plot around her. But this has to be the key, as LSP has to be so obnoxious that it repels the elemental forces. But Ice King comes back with the jewels as they're trying to do LSP, and she's so annoying and obnoxious that it commands all the elemental atoms to stop being themselves and boss them to normal, eventually making a pulse that covers the entirety of Ooh and turns everyone to normal. Maybe a little too normal. But she did it! LSP saved the day in the universe. She didn't really do all that much, but she did it. This is literally the only time in the show that LSP has actually been relevant. It's a miracle. And it was through being as obnoxious as possible, even the elements didn't want to deal with them. How fitting. Now on the one hand, it's easy to consider this a cop-out. I mean, lumps being a new element that was never foreshadowed, and it felt like there was barely a story to fix everything. If anything, LSP herself felt like the biggest hurdle. But I'll give them credit for the few times they actually cared about the situation around them and took agency in resolving it even a little bit. Granted, after she immediately became insufferable, like, she didn't have to do anything. I can't believe I have to praise it when a character was actually proactive in a plot they're in and takes it seriously a few times. But LSP is so deprived of any actual development that this has just become some shining beacon. And honestly, even though this is literally the most LSP has ever done, that this is the culminations of over 8 seasons worth of episodes and appearances, I can't help be insanely disappointed. Luckily, LSP doesn't have any other important episodes after this, thank God, only another season 10 filler episode. As with the finale, they're starting with Bubblegum of course, though I wonder why they never get anyone from Lumpy Space backing them up, but to be fair, there are no soldiers from the Allied Kingdoms here, so why should it be any different? Like seriously, why did none of these guys spare any of their armies? Do you want to lose? But they also play a bit in stopping Gulb and giving their amazing harmonics with Lemon Grab, who they also profess their love to. They also kinda did in the previous episode, so I guess intolerable obnoxious douchebags attract each other. But more importantly, she gets her own finale moment in the montage that actually heads it if anything, where we see LSP finally gets crowned as the ruler of Lumpy Space at long last, as the other princesses, even Breakfast Princess, bow in respect. And honestly, that is kind of the perfect way to end it. after everything I've talked about, all the pain about LSP never growing as a character and staying as a brat, Cece finally did take up that responsibility and came back home. She was officially crowned the ruler and took her birthright, and the princesses who never respected her because of it finally give their legit respect when she became queen. It's actually quite satisfying, and you might argue after the recent stuff, especially the Elemental Saga, that LSP grew more as a character and became responsible, so this is a fitting end. I should mention that she has no appearances in distant lands, but her counterpart, LSP, great name, does appear in Fiona and Cake posing as a vet for a pre-magic cake, and set up then traveling to Ooh. And also doing what LSP does best and ruin everything because people didn't take the precaution to save the world from themselves. I just want to mention them because I would get comments otherwise. But where does that leave us? Look, I don't want to be negative on this channel. I did not make it to be negative, but there's not much else I could say otherwise. Lumpy Space Princess is a true anomaly in the series, and I don't just mean that they're an elemental anomaly. Adventure Time has gotten so much respect and appreciation for being able to turn what was a wacky and silly show into a genuinely compelling and interesting epic, with so many great story arcs, emotional beats, and character development for nearly every character. But Lumpy Space Princess is the only main character that has had absolutely no development for the entire series. They did not change at all to the beginning of the show. They're just comedic relief with a single joke that kept coming back for whatever reason. But even then, the show had plenty of other primarily comic relief characters like Ice King, Beamo, or even how Tree Trunks that had legitimate development, so LSP really doesn't have an excuse. And how even Lemon Grab, also a screechy, selfless, and obnoxious brat, but at least they have some compelling and interesting aspects. They're just one joke, and not even that good of one. Just an obnoxious, whiny, annoying, abrasive teenager with a funny voice who's entirely self-centered. If you don't like that joke, you don't like this character, since that's all they are. But still begs the question, why are they in so many episodes? Why do they have so many prime spotlights when they're not a character who can actually support themselves or be interesting and engaging? It's especially hard for just making a video on Nectar, such a lovable and endearing character, but that so never gave them the time of day with a spotlight episode to explore them, only getting photos on putting them down and hurting them. And yet LSP gets so many spotlights where she's barely developed, and all the content is, my sexy lumps, you all suck but me. It's baffling to me that this joke was so funny to the staff that they continued to use it again and again. And it's even more infuriating to say sometimes did try to develop her character more to be compelling and actually grow like every other character in the show, like in The Monster or Bad Timing. But it never sticks. How does ignore episodes happen? That's a sticker in character limbo to get most out of cheap jokes. I don't know how a writer can make a character so abrasive and unlikable and still be convinced to keep using them when they don't actually become compelling. Anything I said bad about Beamo not taking things seriously pales in comparison to LSP. She's insanely shallow and unlikable, and it feels like the show went out of its way to make sure that she never actually changed or got interesting, and it's infuriating to watch. So comparatively, you could say that LSP is the objective worst character in the show. But to me personally, nah, it still belongs to PB. I already made a video going into my full thoughts of the matter, check it out, but Bubblegum has a huge problem. Whereas the show went on, it started to introduce so many negative and bad traits to her that eventually would evolve into downright megalomania and psychotic tendencies, but the show, despite introducing that, refuses to actually give any consequences of the characters call them out, and then they couldn't make her the perfect little princess, so they had her continually do horrible things as the show still treated her as the objective good person, as the plot and characters bend over backwards to allow it. It's the reason I genuinely hate Bubblegum as a character. In fact, plenty of things I went over here about development just being ignored to keep a character in limbo is no different than what happened to PB. Bubblegum has an immense god complex that's at odds with herself and constantly goes back and forth on her morals and crosses the line and yet never apologizes for it. She genuinely hates Flame Princess and did nothing but abuse, manipulate, and hurt her without an apology, as the show forces a happy resolution without putting in any effort and destroys Flame Princess's characterization as a result, thus allowing herself to be walked all over by the person who would have her killed the first chance to get. Finn throws away his righteous morals and stands just because he's too devoted to Bubblegum, and Gladys is an innocent man to his death and doesn't think twice. And the show ignores all of it, and has the big finale be about saving your kingdom, and tries to make you care even after everything. You question why she's treated as the objective good person you should root for. Bubblegum is far more problematic than LSP, and much more harm to the characters and the franchise. LSP is harmless at best and annoying at worst, and at least you can argue that she slightly develops and becomes more mature as the show went on, even if the development is barely anything. PB just regressed as a character and made the show and the characters worse, as she's actively harmful. So yeah, to me, PB is still the worst character in this show. LSP may come close, but she didn't ruin it nearly as much. And yeah, this was by far the most painful Adventure Time analysis video I've done. I don't know if I can ever sleep again without hearing
These lumps.
or
Get in touch with your feelings,
It just made one of those
just leave me alone!
Nuts.
I know you wanna stump up on these,
Nuts.
but you can't 'cause you're a chump.
What? That's my song!
LSP, you garbage